Hello, my name is Vanessa Scose, and this is my choice book assignment for EDUU 609. My book that I chose to focus on was Big Picture: Education is Everyone's Business by Dennis Littke and Samantha Grubel. This book covers the different ways that everyone is affected in participating in education. The way that we respond to education within our reach can benefit or become a disadvantage to the future of our students. It all comes down to the perspective we have on education as a whole and the impact we are willing to make. This is just a little part, a summary of what I took away after reading our book and kind of seeing the perspective that I have towards education, curriculum, the school system, and students as a whole, and really diving into, okay, what is the core of what we're talking about? Moving on to my big picture. My big picture really consists of two words that I was looking at: impact and perspective. As far as impact goes, we as teachers, as educators, have an impact on schools, students, and families. What we do, what we say, how we teach, and what we choose not to say and not to teach is making an impact on our student in our classroom daily. Then the second word is perspective. Underneath this little spot, it says school systems, curriculum, and stakeholders. Our perspective and how we see the school system and the way it functions and the way we look at curriculum rather than just a piece of a formula to follow, and the way we kind of interact with our stakeholders, whether that's students, the community, or families of those students. Our perspective and the way we look at all those things as a whole really matters as educators, as teachers, as the next leaders of what our school system may be. Now, let's go on to diving in just a little bit deeper and going into our school systems and students. So in our book, it says, one size never fits all, one size fits one. Tom Peters. It goes on to say, no matter how hard schools try, a one-size-fits-all approach to education will always be a hit or miss. So if we look at school systems, we see that in many ways there is a general overall format, general overall schedule, general overall idea of how things should be done. Some schools have simple paper, pencil, textbook formats. Some schools have technology. Some school systems are charter schools, so they fit in smaller classrooms. And majority of charter schools all kind of look the same. Majority of public schools kind of all look the same as well. There's some accessories that are nice that go with it. Maybe they have a good football team, or maybe they have an amazing engineering classroom or option as an elective, or whatever the case may be. A school system still looks the same to a degree. It's more of, okay, this is what this group of kids are going to learn. They're going to go through it, and they are going to go through first grade, second grade, third grade, high school, and it's all very similar. If one kid is taking a class in ninth grade in California, in Northern California, let's say, they're going to take algebra, and the kid in Southern California in ninth grade is also probably going to take the same algebra. Now, is there a reason that that's wrong? No, but just to state that everything is very general, and the system and how we go about schools and the way we approach everything is very uniform. Now, if we want to dive in, so school system being a little bit bigger, and now diving into students being more detailed, the way we teach our classrooms also have to be very dynamic as well. We cannot teach one student or all students the same way as we teach this one student. Johnny might need visual aids, whereas Samantha might need you just to tell her what to do. Just give her a plain lecture. Whereas Jason might need a hands-on learning. That's why there's so many different dynamics to school systems, students, the whole picture. And I think that's why this book was really called The Big Picture, because it really takes an educator to zoom out and see what exactly is needed in this time, what exactly is needed for schools and for students. So now I'm going to try to connect my first parts to our course and how things that we've been learning are really connected with our book. So connections to the course. We're really looking at school system and students. In our book it says, what is difficult is what schools do every day. Unravel the world and all its vast knowledge and put it into boxes called subjects and separate things that are not separate in the real world. What is science without math? What is history without language? What are languages without their history? In our course, we saw these 2 videos that are presented here in front of us, and they both really cover this simple idea, but give a lot of detail. This one here really talks about how the school system really there's so many parts, but it really dives into what it really is and digest exactly, okay, what are we doing with our students? How uniformed is it? Things are separate, but they're all the same. And what does that look like? And what does our future hold if we continue on this way? And in our next video here, we come in contact with an interview with probably a young student just coming out of high school or college, whatever the case may be, but really realizing that subjects are separate, that the things that we teach kids are very one size fits all. So if I teach you math, you should know math when you go work somewhere. If I teach you language or writing or ELA, you should be able to know how to write an email or to create an agenda for a meeting, or how to write a newsletter, depending on where they're going to be. This is not always the case. So assuming that everything is separate in our school systems and how it looks to our students right now, we must realize that there are some parts that need to really come together, and there are some things that we can probably improve on within our school system, so that way students, as they hit the real world, they're able to see, okay, am I ready or am I not ready? Is everything still separate, or do I have these experiences that I need to be successful? And so we have these 2 videos you can go ahead and watch on your own, but I also want to dive into students. Our book states we are interested in what we are learning. No one has to force us to keep learning. We just do. So this statement reminded me of our activity that we had in our course, where it said to share your best experience that you had in your best college experience. So I noticed as I was going through all of the responses, that each student, each person in our course was able to express a time where their professor or their educator or their teacher was able to either have a conversation with them, but introduce them to something, or the course itself consisted of something that was hands-on or it touched them. It was inspiring. So with that, I think that our interest in the impact that our classes and our teachers have on students is so important. And our book really focuses on that when we are interested in what we are learning, so when a child or student is interested in what we're talking about. Now, I know there's many teachers that are always trying, like, okay, well, I have to get them interested, I have to get them involved, I have to do this, I have to do that. No, it says no one has to force us to keep learning. We just do. So with that, I just want to touch on and connect that yes, there are things that us as teachers should do to make sure that we are making sure that our curriculum meets the needs, meets the interests, meets the passions that are needed for our students today. If of course there's, math is going to be math and English is going to be English. We can make it, fun and engaging as much as possible, but also let's take into consideration that one-on-one time as well. I know there's experiences here. My first best college experience was when my teacher just had a conversation with me and said, I think you can teach very well. You understand how to process lecture and all of that, which is nice to hear in general. But to know that the teacher took the time to actually talk and communicate was the big picture for me, just to be engaged in school alone. So just students knowing that there are interests, that we have an impact on them, whether it's the way that we teach or what we teach. Those two things are so important. And in our textbook, we also need to realize that that is a very important part. So moving on to a narrative poem. After reading the course, the book that we covered, my choice book, I wrote a little poem, and I, of course, titled it Big Picture, like our book that I read. And so this is just something that I was able to gather. It states, I am seen, you are heard. I am unique, you categorized me. I am dying, you see me as alive. You hand out learning, I run on passion. You take my resources, I create my own. You see the needs, I wait for your attention. I am supposed to be a living organism. Can you make that happen? This narrative poem just came to mind after kind of just digesting everything that was considered, everything that was read from the Big Picture book. The bits and pieces here, I am seen, you are heard. A lot of times we see the students and we see that we know that they're so important. That's the whole reason why we are in education and in the school education field. But at the same time, we also, in our book, it talks about hearing our students, knowing their passions, knowing what is really going on the inside. It says, I am unique, you categorized me. So really just saying yes. We in the book we talk about how unique each student is. They're so different. You can't just teach this one the same as the other. Yet we still categorize them. We still put them in the same classrooms. We say, oh, you have to do this assignment this way. And so now those things are not wrong, but in a way we are still doing that, and it's kind of hard to not do that, especially right now in these times. It says, I am dying, you see me as alive. If we do not grasp on to what is going on inside of our learners, inside of our students, and how are they really understanding? Are they just saying yes? Because if they're not really understanding, like we've been covering in our text, are they understanding? And so true understanding, we want to make sure that they are not just saying yes, they are not being passive, but that we see that where the lack is, where it's just an answer, or where it's true understanding. You hand out learning, I run on passion. We try to just say, okay, here's your assignment, go ahead and do it. But what are they really passionate about? The videos that we talked about, even in our course about the Paperclip movie, those students were passionate about what they were doing. And in the same way, we need to make sure that as educators, as teachers, that we are making sure that we see their passions. We, of course, spark the flame, we can start it, but also let them run with it. It says, you take my resources, I create my own. in many cases, not in every school, do they have the resources, the ability to be a divergent learner, maybe using a computer, maybe using hands-on tools, depending on how their passions are. And if they don't have those things, then they create their own. In our book, in our choice book, The Big Picture, we talk about how poverty and how depression and just feeling like they just can't, that their past is too much for them to take, that they don't amount to anything, they in return take themselves out of school. So we just need to make sure, I think, as educators, that also is important, that we don't take things or don't provide what is needed. Make sure we provide what is needed, so that way they don't go off and think that they have to make their own way. Education is important, and we want to make sure that that passion for that connection is there. It says, "You see the needs, I wait for your attention." So many times I think teachers, we see that, okay, they're not getting it. We see that the understanding is not there. We see that they're just there, just answering. And that's where the impact takes place. We need to see those needs, and we need to make that impact, because they are waiting for that attention. I'm supposed to be a living organism. Can you make that happen? In our book, it talks about that the school system is a living organism. It is changing, it is growing, it is alive. It is like a business that is moving and growing. And the best part is the last chapter, just saying that, can we make this happen? How do we make this happen for our students, for their future, for them to be successful? And so that was just a little narrative poem that I wrote to be more creative on this side, and really just kind of pull it all together. Now, just kind of connecting our course to the book one more time. In chapter 9, from Wiggins and McTee, the understanding the design for our curriculum, connect well with the perspective taken on this choice book, The Big Picture. In our course, actually, this week, we went over the chapter Planning for Learning, which is chapter 9. A colleague shared that I have to change the way I think about educating students and the learning that will make them successful. She pointed out towards a figure that was in our textbook, which gives questions to ask ourselves in different phases of planning. In order to plan for learning and activities, we ask that learning activities and teaching will promote understanding, knowledge, skills, important interests, and excellence. So with that, we want to make sure, I loved how she said this. She says, I have to change the way I think. So that way, in turn, she's able to answer this question. She's able to promote understanding, knowledge, skills, and excellence in her learning activities. So I think that's amazing. And that is exactly what the Big Picture book is talking about. For teachers to really see, okay, I'm not looking at the big picture. I'm just looking at, sometimes we just look at curriculum. Sometimes we just see, okay, this is what I need to get done. This is what I need to do. It says that the objective of this lesson is this, so we got to make sure this gets accomplished. Those are all normal things as an educator. A lot of times that is what we are taught to do majority of the time. Also, we don't want to fail. We want to make sure that our kids meet all the goals that they need to meet. However, we can get so caught up on those little details that we forget, okay, wait, are we promoting understanding? Are they really getting the skills and the experience that is needed? Are they really reaching? Are we being excellent in that? So I just loved that she said that, and I'm gonna have to let her know that I used her, I quoted her, but yes, it was just, I think that was a perfect example of just having the big picture. And then moving on to what Wiggins and McTee state in their book. Within that same chapter, it also states, what the teacher designer must do here above all else is resist the temptation to fall back on comfortable and familiar techniques. Yes, so I've used the same picture that was used earlier. because we want to make sure that we do not fall back to what is familiar. We do not fall back on classrooms that, this is not a bad classroom at all. It looks like their kids are working, they look like they're engaged, they are writing, it looks like they're doing cursive. But at the same time, we want to make sure that our classrooms are consisting of more. We are in the 21st century, we are capable of moving on to doing amazing things. Now, not that cursive is not important, but that we want to make sure that we do not fall back. We do not become complacent. We do not become the average Joe, the average teacher. We want to make sure that we are constantly saying, okay, what is changing? Because like it states, school system is a living organism. So just love that right there. And so these are just some pictures I wanted to show. Stay in the big picture. We cannot just be teachers that are inside the box, taking a look. Okay, sometimes this is how I feel right now, especially in our courses and learning and getting all this information. I feel like sometimes I'm just sitting here and I'm looking, I'm like, okay, how am I going to apply this? What am I going to do? But this is something that it says too many possibilities out there. Yes, that is exactly it. And I think that is exactly what the Big Picture book is all about. There is so much out there that we do not need to be staying inside of a box. We do not need to be staying constantly just being an observer, but we can also be someone that actually does and puts things into action as well. So let's make sure we are not just staying inside the box and just simply observing, which is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but let's make sure that we are getting out there and we are ready to apply what we're seeing. While we're in this course, it is a perfect time to observe. It's a perfect time to look, reflect, realize, okay, what do I need to change personally first, and then we can go ahead and share with everyone else. But this is just something that for me personally, I don't want to stay inside of a box. I don't want to just be that observer. I want to make sure that I actually get out. And this is another little funny one. Thinking inside the box. And then the person says, me too. I feel like a lot of times we can fall back on thinking this way. I've met many teachers who are like, yeah, this is what I do this every year, this is the same outline that we do, it works pretty well, got it all printed out, ready for the whole school year, which is great. I totally understand. There's a lot of pressure for teachers to get things prepped. Prepping is key. However, the little box next to them is the most important. New teachers learning, growing, gaining that experience, the Me Too box, that is where it's so important, and that's where it's so key. We want to make sure that we do not cut off the perspective or the ideas or the possibilities that could be coming from the new teachers coming up, so that they do not lose sight of the big picture. I feel like a lot of times, which is normal, schools will pair a teacher with another more experienced teacher, which is good. It's totally fine. But I think we also need to make sure that there's room to still grow and still grow even more than what that teacher that you've been paired with has been able to comprehend so far. And so this is just meant to be a little funny thing, but it really does, it can speak volumes. We just want to make sure we don't stay inside this little box, that there is a big picture to look at. And we want to make sure we're also influencing other teachers to do the same. So this is just something that, just to close everything down and to make sure we're staying in the big picture. In order for us to stay in the big picture, we have to see all the different parts of education as important and alive. A school has to be a living organism, Licky and Gabriel, 2004. Therefore, our perspective has to be ready to grow and change, ready to see students, families, curriculum, and the school system for what it really is, and not what we want to think of it to be. We have to face the fact that education is good, but not exactly where it needs to be. That includes teachers, curriculum, students, families, and the school system. We are capable of making it happen for the sake of our students' future, which in the end will be our future too. Our choice book, The Big Picture, really just focuses on, okay, let's not just focus on this little detail. Let's not just focus on a lesson, but let's see everything as a whole. There's so many parts of education that we need to consider, and so many parts that need to keep growing. We need to make sure that one little part is not broken, but it's also supported, so that way everything functions as a whole. But most importantly, our school systems, our students, they are our tomorrow. They are the ones who are going to be the next teachers, the next congressmen, the next governors, the next scientists, CDC workers. They're going to be all those things. And if we can give them that experience so they can be a part of the big picture, that is what we need to do. And so this book inspired me. This book really pushed me as an educator to say, okay, my impact is important and what I do needs to be intentional, but also my perspective and how I see the school and how I see my students is even more important, even more the motivator to continue to see growth. If we cannot see students for who they are, and our book talks about, let's not look at their past, let's not look at their record, because they see that. That's all they're probably focusing on, right? So let's focus on their future. Let's focus on what they are capable of, because they are our tomorrow. Our life definitely could be in their hands one day as years progress. So we just want to stay in the big picture. Let's not stay closed. And so that is my choice book assignment. I hope that all made sense. It was a great book to read. It was amazing to digest and really focus on. We have so many parts. There's so many parts to cover. But for me, the impact that we have and the perspective that we need to have when it comes to our school system and our students is so key. Thank you.